You know what hurts more than losing your retirement money? It's realizing that the woman who took it understood you better than you understood yourself. She knew exactly what an old fool like me was looking for. Purpose, legacy, something that would outlive me. And she gave it to me, right up until the moment she took it all away. If our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. This confession came to us from a long-time subscriber who wanted other retirees to hear his story before they make the same mistake he did. I'd been dreaming about farming long before I ever set foot in the Philippines. Sitting in my cramped Queens apartment after my wife passed, I'd spend hours watching YouTube videos about sustainable agriculture and heirloom seeds. At 68, I had my pension, some savings, and absolutely nothing tying me to New York anymore. The city felt like a tomb after Margaret died. I needed something alive, something growing. When I stumbled across videos about cheap farmland in the Philippines and the kindness of rural Filipino people, it felt like fate. I started researching Mindanao, reading expat forums, and convincing myself that an old mechanic from Queens could reinvent himself as a farmer in paradise. Every night I'd watch the same channels. Expats showing off their tropical gardens, talking about how $1,000 could buy you an acre of fertile land. The soil here is so rich, they'd say. You can grow anything. I'd pause the videos and stare at those endless green fields, imagining myself walking through rows of vegetables I'd planted with my own hands. Margaret used to laugh at my black thumb. "Irving, you couldn't grow weeds in Central Park," she'd tease. But watching those videos, I started believing maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe I could learn. Maybe I could build something that would matter after I was gone. The loneliness was eating me alive. Our apartment still smelled like her perfume 6 months after the funeral. I'd catch myself setting 2 plates for dinner, buying her favorite yogurt at the grocery store. My daughter called once a week from California, but what was I supposed to tell her? That I was sitting in the same chair every day waiting to die? That retirement felt like a prison sentence? The farming videos gave me something to hope for, something to plan, something that felt like living instead of just surviving. I started taking notes, making lists of crops that grew well in tropical climates. Tomatoes, eggplant, peppers, herbs. I researched seed suppliers, watched tutorials on crop rotation, learned about organic farming techniques. It felt good to study something new, to imagine a future that didn't involve slowly disappearing in a Queens apartment. My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, thought I was losing my mind. "Irving, you're not farmer material," she'd say when she saw me reading agriculture magazines. But what did she know? What did any of them know about what it felt like to outlive your purpose? The expat forums were full of success stories. Americans and Europeans who'd bought land for nothing, built houses for a few $1,000s, lived like kings on their social security checks. They posted photos of their gardens, their Filipino wives, their simple but happy lives. "Best decision I ever made," they'd write. "Should have done this years ago." I started imagining myself in those photos, standing next to rows of vegetables. I'd grown myself, finally having something to be proud of again. That's when Soledad's message appeared in my Facebook inbox. Her profile showed a simple woman in work clothes, standing next to what looked like rice terraces. She'd seen my comments on an expat farming group and said she owned 5 hectares in Bukidnon that she couldn't manage alone anymore. "My husband passed away 2 years ago," she wrote in broken but sincere English. "Too much land for one woman. Looking for partner who understand farming." Her photos showed rich, dark soil and what she called virgin land, perfect for planting. She talked about wanting to expand into organic vegetables, but needing someone with capital and farming knowledge. I didn't have farming knowledge, but I was so hungry for purpose that I convinced myself I could learn. We video called twice, and she seemed genuine. Weathered hands, simple clothes, talking about crop rotations and seed varieties like she'd been doing it her whole life. She showed me around her property on the video call, pointing to different areas where she grew rice, where she wanted to plant vegetables, where there was good water access. "This land very fertile," she said, holding up a handful of dark soil. "My husband, he grow many things here, but now I cannot manage alone." She seemed shy on the video calls, almost embarrassed to be asking for help. "I'm not good with English," she'd apologize when she struggled with words, but her passion for the land came through clearly. She'd talk about the seasons, about which crops grew best about her dreams of expanding into organic vegetables for export. Filipino people, they want to eat healthy now, she explained. Organic vegetables, very expensive in Manila. Can grow here, sell there, make good money. I started planning my trip to meet her and see the land. She sent me detailed instructions on how to get to her barangay, warned me about the long bus ride from the airport, offered to pick me up in town. You bring work clothes, she advised. We walk the land, you see everything, decide if you want to be partner. The way she said partner made me feel important, needed. Like I wasn't just another lonely old man with money, but someone who could contribute something valuable. When I landed in Cagayan de Oro and took the bus to Malaybalay, everything felt exactly like I'd imagined. Rolling green hills, farmers working small plots, the smell of earth and growing things everywhere. It was nothing like Queens, nothing like the concrete and car exhaust I'd been breathing for 68 years. The air was clean, the sky was bigger, and everywhere I looked, things were growing. This is it, I thought. This is where I'm supposed to be. Soledad picked me up in an old jeepney, dressed in the same simple work clothes from her photos. She was smaller than I expected, maybe 45, with kind eyes and calloused hands that told the story of hard work. "Welcome to Bukidnon, Irving," she said with a shy smile. "I hope you like it here." The drive to her barangay took 2 hours through increasingly remote roads. She pointed out different crops along the way, explained the seasons, talked about her dreams of expanding into organic vegetables. "This corn, very good this year," she'd say, pointing to fields on both sides of the road. "Rain come at right time. But vegetables more profit. People in city, they pay good money for organic." Her English was limited, but her enthusiasm was infectious. She talked about soil quality, about water rights, about which crops were in demand in Manila markets. I found myself believing that maybe, just maybe, I could learn all this too. When we reached her property, I was stunned. 5 hectares of gently sloping land with a small nipa hut, fruit trees, and what she called virgin soil, perfect for planting. It looked like everything I'd been dreaming about during those long nights in Queens. The land rolled away in gentle waves, some already planted with rice that swayed in the breeze, other sections lying fallow and ready for cultivation. "This where we grow vegetables," she said, walking me to a cleared area near a small stream. "Water always available here, soil very good." She bent down and grabbed a handful of earth, letting it run through her fingers. "Look, Irving, black soil, very fertile. My husband, he tests this soil before he die, perfect for vegetables." I knelt down beside her and felt the soil myself. It was rich and loamy, nothing like the clay dirt I remembered from my childhood. In Brooklyn, this felt alive, full of potential. "How long your husband farm here?" I asked. 20 years, she replied. "He know this land very well. He teach me everything before he die." That first evening, she cooked dinner in her simple kitchen while I sat on the bamboo porch, watching the sun set over the mountains. The peace was overwhelming. No traffic, no sirens, just the sound of insects and the distant lowing of carabaos. "You like it here?" she asked, bringing me a plate of rice and vegetables. "It's beautiful," I told her, and I meant it. "I can see why your husband loved this place." She smiled sadly. "He always say this land will take care of us. Now I must take care of land alone." On my 3rd day there, Soledad brought up something that would change everything. She said she had connections with agricultural cooperatives in Davao who could provide premium heirloom seeds at wholesale prices, but she needed capital to make bulk purchases. "These seeds, Irving, very special," she explained, showing me colorful catalogs with pictures of tomatoes, peppers, and herbs. "Heirloom varieties, very expensive in Manila. Rich people pay big money for these vegetables. The profit margins," she described, were incredible. Buy seeds for 50 pesos per packet, grow them on her fertile land, then sell the harvest to organic distributors in Manila for 10 times that amount. She showed me order forms, price lists, even what looked like contracts with buyers. "This company in Manila, they already agree to buy everything we grow," she said, pointing to official-looking documents with letterheads and signatures. They pay premium price for organic heirloom vegetables. The catch was the minimum order, $15,000 worth of seeds to get the wholesale pricing. If we buy small amount, price too high, she explained, but if we buy bulk, we get good price, then profit very big. She couldn't afford it alone, but if we partnered, we could split the profits 50-50. She'd provide the land and labor, I'd provide the capital for seeds. It seemed logical, even conservative. I'd spent more than that on Margaret's medical bills. In her final year, this was an investment in life, not death. I know it big money for you, she said, looking worried. But this land, these seeds, this partnership, we can make good business here. I work very hard, Irving. You see how I work. And this land, it produced good harvest always. She showed me her rice harvest from the previous year, bags of grain stored in her small warehouse. Rice brings some money, but vegetables bring real money. She walked me through the numbers carefully. With $15,000 worth of heirloom seeds, we could plant 3 crops per year on 2 hectares. Each harvest could bring $25,000 gross revenue, maybe more if we focused on the most expensive varieties. After costs for labor and transportation, we'd still clear $15,000 profit per harvest. Split between us, that meant I could earn back my investment in less than 2 harvests and continue earning $7,500 every few months after that. You think about it, she said that night over dinner. I understand it big decision, but Irving, I tell you truth, this opportunity not come again. These seed suppliers, they only offer wholesale price once per year. If we miss this chance, we wait another year, maybe price go up. I lay awake that night in her simple guest room, listening to the sounds of the countryside and trying to decide if this was the opportunity I'd been praying for or if I was being foolish again. I should have walked away when she insisted on cash. She explained that the seed cooperative didn't take foreign wire transfers and local banks charged huge fees for converting dollars. These people, Irving, they simple farmers, she said. They not have fancy bank accounts like in Manila. Everything here is cash business. It made sense at the time. Everything in rural Philippines seemed to run on cash. The jeepney ride, meals at small restaurants, even the investigator I'd hire later, everything was cash. I went back to Cagayan de Oro, withdrew $15,000 from 3 different ATMs over 2 days, and returned to her barangay with the money in a manila envelope. My hands shook as I counted it out. It represented almost 2 years of my pension. Money I couldn't afford to lose, but Soledad's excitement was contagious. Irving, you not regret this, she said as she counted the bills carefully. This money, it changed both our lives. She gave me a handwritten receipt on plain paper and promised to take me to Davao the following week to meet the seed suppliers. You want to meet them, make sure everything legitimate, she said. I understand, you smart businessman, you want to check everything. That night, we celebrated with her neighbors, simple people who seemed to know and respect her. They talked about her late husband, her struggles as a widow, her reputation for hard work. Soledad, she very good farmer, said an elderly man named Mang Berting. Her husband, he teach her everything. She know how to make plants grow. The neighbors seemed genuinely happy for her, for us. You lucky, Irving, said a woman named Ailing. Rosa. Soledad, she treat you like family now. Filipino family, very important. I felt like I was becoming part of something real, something meaningful. I was already imagining the harvest, calculating profits, planning which crops to expand next season. That week I helped her with small tasks around the property. I wasn't much use as a farmer, but I could paint, repair tools, organize the storage shed. Working with my hands felt good after months of sitting around Queens doing nothing. You, a natural farmer? Soledad would tease when I'd struggle with simple tasks. Maybe in next life you born in Philippines grow up on farm. Her laughter was genuine, warm. For the first time since Margaret died, I felt useful again. The trip to Davao kept getting postponed. First, Soledad said the cooperative representative was traveling. He go to Cebu for big agriculture conference, she explained. Very important meeting about new seed varieties. He back next week, then we go meet him. Then she claimed there were delays in the seed shipments from abroad. Seeds coming from Thailand, but customs very slow this time of year. She said, showing me what looked like shipping documents. Meanwhile, she started small construction projects around the property, a new storage shed, improved irrigation channels, concrete platforms for drying crops. She paid workers in cash and always had reasonable explanations for the expenses. "We need proper storage for seeds when they arrive," she said about the shed. "And irrigation, very important for vegetable farming, must have good water system." When I asked to see receipts or meet the seed suppliers directly, she seemed hurt that I didn't trust her. "Irving, why you think I cheat you?" she asked with tears in her eyes. "You see how I work, how I live. You think I have money to build all these things if I'm not honest person." She'd remind me that she was taking all the physical risk, her land, her labor, her local reputation. All I had to do was wait for the profits, but waiting is harder than working. And I started noticing things. Her neighbors stopped mentioning her farming background when I asked direct questions about her experience. When I mentioned to Mang Berting that Soledad had been farming for 20 years, he looked confused. 20 years? I think maybe less, he said. She come here after she married Rodrigo maybe 5 years ago. The property deed she showed me was in Tagalog, and when I asked for an English translation, she said she'd get one soon. Her phone conversations, which she always took in private, seemed more frequent and urgent. I'd catch fragments in English, mentions of money, timelines, other names I didn't recognize. Business calls, she'd explain when I asked. Seed suppliers, very busy people, always calling to check status of orders. But something in her voice had changed. The shy, grateful woman from our video calls was becoming more confident, more evasive. 2 months later, Soledad presented me with what she called an incredible opportunity. A developer was interested in buying 3 of her 5 hectares for a resort project. "Big company from Manila," she said excitedly. "They want to build high-class resort here with golf course and everything. They offer very good money." The offer was $50,000, 10 times what agricultural land typically sold for in the area. But there was a problem. The buyer needed clear title, and there were some minor issues with her paperwork that required legal fees to resolve. "When my husband died, some documents not properly transferred to my name," she explained, looking embarrassed. "Now government want all papers perfect before they approve sale. If I could advance another $8,000 for attorney fees and government processing, we could close the sale within a month. My share would be $25,000, enough to recover my seed investment plus a substantial profit." She showed me what looked like a legitimate purchase offer from a Manila-based development company, complete with letterhead, signatures, and official-looking stamps. "Look, Irving, they even send deposit check," she said, showing me a check for $5,000 made out to her name. "But they cannot release full payment until title is clear." The timeline was tight because the developer was moving quickly to secure multiple properties in the region. "They building 3 resorts in Bukidnon," she explained. "This land, perfect. Location? Near mountains, good access to highway, beautiful view. But they need to buy all properties fast before other developers find out. I'd already invested so much time and money that backing out seemed like admitting failure. Against every instinct, I wired the additional $8,000 to the law firm she specified. "Irving, you not believe how lucky we are," she said after confirming the wire transfer. "First the seed business, now the land sale. God must be smiling on our partnership." But even as she spoke, I noticed her hands weren't shaking with excitement the way mine were. She seemed almost relieved, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. "Soon we both be rich," she said. But something in her smile looked different now. The legal processing dragged on for weeks, with increasingly creative excuses. The attorney needed additional documentation that hadn't been mentioned before. Government offices were closed for extended holidays I'd never heard of. The developer was reviewing environmental impact studies that would take months to complete. Philippine bureaucracy very slow, Soledad would explain when I called to check on progress. Everything take longer here than in America. I started doing my own research and couldn't find any record of the development company online. Their website looked professional, but when I dug deeper, the address was a post office box and the phone numbers went to voicemail that was never returned. When I tried calling the law firm directly, the number was disconnected. They change office, Irving, Soledad explained, moving to bigger building near Makati. Very good sign. Business is growing. Soledad assured me these were normal delays in Philippine bureaucracy, but her explanations were becoming more elaborate and less believable. I noticed she was spending money freely, new clothes, a motorcycle, home improvements that seemed beyond what a struggling farmer could afford. Insurance money from husband finally come, she explained when I commented on her new possessions. Government very slow to process widow benefits, but finally they pay. When I pressed her about timelines for either the seeds or the land sale, she became emotional, reminding me of everything she'd done for me, how I was like family to her now. Irving, you think I want to hurt family? She'd ask with tears in her eyes. You only man who ever treat me with respect after my husband die. I would never cheat you. But the family feeling was starting to feel like manipulation, like emotional leverage to keep me from asking too many questions. I finally demanded to see the actual seed inventory or meet the buyers she'd been promising for months. Soledad broke down crying, claiming I didn't understand the pressures she was under as a woman trying to manage business in a man's world. In Philippines, Irving, woman cannot do business like man, she sobbed. Suppliers, lawyers, everyone try to cheat woman alone. They think because I am widow, I am weak. She accused me of being impatient like all Americans, not understanding how things worked in the Philippines. In your country, everything happened fast. Here, everything take time. You must trust the process. But when I threatened to involve local authorities to verify her claims, her tears stopped abruptly. The crying shut off like a faucet, and for a moment, I saw something cold in her eyes that I'd never noticed before. She told me the seeds had been planted on other plots she managed for neighbors, and the harvest wouldn't be ready for evaluation until next season. You want to see seeds? They in ground already growing, she said with forced patience. What you expect me to do, dig them up to show you? The land sale was still pending, but the developer was reconsidering due to political changes in the region. New administration changed rules about foreign investment, she explained. Everything on hold now. Every answer led to more questions, more delays, more excuses. I realized I was either dealing with breathtaking incompetence or sophisticated fraud, and my gut was telling me which one was more likely. The woman who'd seemed so genuine, so humble, so grateful for my partnership, was starting to feel like someone I'd never met. Like I'd been talking to an actress this whole time. I hired a local investigator to verify Soledad's background and property claims. Carlos was a retired police detective who specialized in fraud cases involving foreigners. Sir Irving, he said in his careful English, I must tell you truth. This type of case, very common here in Philippines. Lonely foreign men, they easy. Target for this kind of woman. I wanted to be offended, but I was too scared to argue. The truth was worse than I'd feared. The land wasn't hers. It belonged to her brother-in-law, and she had no legal right to make development deals. She only renting small portion, Carlos explained, showing me the real property documents. She pay 5,000 pesos per month to use 1 hectare, but she tell you she owned 5 hectares, this is lie. The seed cooperative didn't exist. The addresses she'd given me led to empty lots or buildings that housed completely different businesses. The law firm was a mail drop in a Manila shopping center. I go there personally, Carlos said, showing me photos. Just small room with post office boxes. No lawyers, no legal documents, nothing. Soledad wasn't even a farmer. She worked at a call center in Cagayan de Oro and had been running similar scams on foreign retirees for over 2 years. Her real name is Soledad Reyes, but she used many different names for different victims. The investigator showed me photos of at least 3 other elderly Western men who'd been through identical schemes with her. Each had lost between $10,000 and $30,000 chasing the same dream of agricultural partnership and land development profits. Same story every time, Carlos explained. She meet them online, show them fake property, take their money for seeds or land deals. Very professional operation. I wasn't her first victim, and I probably wouldn't be her last. She learned from each case, Carlos said. Get better at finding right kind of man, telling right kind of story. You not stupid, Sir Irving. She very good at this job, but knowing I wasn't uniquely foolish didn't make me feel any less foolish. If anything, it made me feel worse. Like I was just another predictable old man following a script she'd used dozens of times before. When I confronted Soledad with the investigators' findings, she didn't deny anything. The tears, the anger, the emotional manipulation, all of it just disappeared. She looked tired and said she was sorry it had to end this way. "Irving, you nice man," she said calmly. "I not plan for you to find out this way. I hope we could continue longer. Make it work somehow." She claimed she'd spent most of my money supporting her extended family and couldn't pay it back even if she wanted to. My mother, she's sick. My children need school fees. My brother, he lose his job during pandemic. I use your money to help them survive. It might have been true, or it might have been another lie. At that point, I couldn't tell the difference anymore. She suggested I could report her to the police, but warned me that foreign investors who couldn't prove legitimate business partnerships often faced more scrutiny than local citizens accused of fraud. "Philippine law protect Filipino people from foreign exploitation," she said, with something that might have been irony. "You have tourist visa, no business permit, no proper documentation. Police maybe ask why you doing business in Philippines without proper papers." She was right. My tourist visa and lack of documentation for our partnership would make legal action complicated and expensive. I realized she'd been playing a much longer game than I understood, and I was just another lonely old man who'd made it easy for her. The worst part was seeing how easily she shifted back and forth between her different personalities. The grateful widow, the hard-working farmer, the savvy businesswoman, the tired scammer. I never figured out which one was real, or if any of them were. I spent 2 weeks trying to navigate the Philippine legal system and quickly learned why Soledad had been so confident. Without written contracts or proper documentation of our business arrangement, I had no legal standing to recover my money. The local police were sympathetic, but explained that this type of case would take years to prosecute, assuming they could build a case at all. "Sir, we understand your problem," said the desk sergeant in Malay. "But this woman, she very smart. She never put anything in writing, never make promises on video, never do anything that break law clearly, is civil matter, not criminal matter. The American embassy could provide a list of attorneys, but couldn't intervene in civil disputes between private parties. Every lawyer I consulted wanted substantial upfront fees with no guarantee of success. This case very difficult," explained Attorney Mendoza in Cagayan de Oro. "Need to prove fraudulent intent, but she can claim was legitimate business that failed. You have receipt for money she can say was investment that not work out. Philippine court very slow, very expensive for foreign plaintiff." I was facing the choice between throwing more money after bad or accepting my losses and going home. Best case scenario, maybe you recover 20–30% of money after 2–3 years of legal fighting, Attorney Mendoza explained. Worst case, you spend more money on legal fees than you lost in first place. The investigator advised me to leave immediately before Soledad decided I was becoming a threat to her operation. I left the Philippines 3 days later with $200 in my pocket and a bitter education about my own gullibility. The flight back to New York felt like the longest 20 hours of my life. I kept replaying every conversation, every red flag I'd ignored, every moment when my desperation had overruled my judgment. The worst part wasn't losing the money, it was realizing how perfectly Soledad had read me. She understood that I needed to feel useful, needed a purpose bigger than myself, needed to believe that an old man from Queens could still build something meaningful. She gave me exactly what I was hungry for, right up until the moment she took everything away. The farming dream, the partnership, the feeling of being needed and respected, all of it had been carefully crafted to exploit my loneliness and my pride. I'd gone to the Philippines looking for a new life and came home with a harsh lesson about the difference between dreams and delusions. Dreams are about what's possible. Delusions are about what we need to believe to keep going. I'd been so afraid, self-admitting that my best years were behind me, that I'd convinced myself I could still have adventures, still build something, still matter to someone. Soledad had sold me back my own fantasy, and I'd paid her life savings for the privilege. Back in New York, I had to face the practical reality of what I'd lost. $23,000 was almost a third of my savings. I couldn't afford to keep my apartment, so I moved into senior housing in the Bronx. The place smelled like disinfectant and resignation. My new neighbors were other people who'd outlived their usefulness, warehoused together to wait for the end as efficiently as possible. I stopped talking to the few friends I had left because I was too ashamed to explain where I'd been and why. I'd come back broke. "How was your trip to the Philippines?" Mrs. Chen asked when she saw me in the lobby of my old building, collecting my forwarded mail. "Educational," I told her, and left it at that. What was I going to say? That I'd been played by a woman half my age? That I'd fallen for a scam so obvious that even the local police had seen it 100 times before? The hardest part was accepting that at 68, I probably wouldn't get another chance to chase big dreams or reinvent myself. I was back where I started, except now I had confirmation that I was just another old fool who'd been easy to manipulate. The farming videos that had once given me hope now just reminded me of my stupidity. The expat forums full of success stories now looked like hunting grounds for predators who specialized in selling false hope to desperate men. Sometimes I wonder if Soledad ever thinks about me, or if I was just another transaction in her business. Of selling hope to desperate people, does she remember my name, or do all her victims blend together after a while? Does she feel guilty when she spends money that used to be mine, or has she convinced herself that lonely old men like me deserve what we get for being so gullible? But I've learned something valuable about the difference between starting over and starting fresh. Starting over means trying to recapture something you've lost, your youth, your purpose, your significance. It's about denial, about refusing to accept that some chapters of your life are finished. Starting fresh means accepting what you have and making peace with who you really are right now without the fantasy of transformation or redemption. I'm still working on the second part. Most days I sit in my small room in the Bronx and try to find meaning in what's left. Crossword puzzles, old movies, conversations with other residents who've also learned hard lessons about the gap between dreams and reality. It's not the life I imagined, but it's the life I have. And maybe after everything I've been through, that's enough. Maybe learning to be content with enough is the only real wisdom available to men like me. I'm still working on believing that, but some days I almost do.